How do you come back from leaving a stable husband for an ex who walks away the moment you get pregnant? What happens when the man you betrayed is the only one with the power to save you, and he instead uses quiet records, DNA tests, and legal forms to walk away clean? Can a woman who thought love was a game survive when the final move is served in a hospital cafeteria? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Lyris Ansel, and everyone says I threw my life away on purpose. I do not agree. I think I just refuse to stay small. People like simple stories, good wife, bad husband, happy home. That was never us. Daniel was safe, yes, but he was also heavy. He pulled everything down. Leo, my ex, made me feel light again. So when I chose Leo, I told myself I was choosing my heart, not my history. Now they say I left my husband to marry my ex, got pregnant, and lost them both. They say it like a joke, like a warning meme on the internet. They never say I was scared. They never say I was tired of being the only one who felt anything. Daniel did not shout or break things when I told him I was leaving. He just went quiet and started writing things down. At the time, I called that weakness. I called it proof that he did not love me enough to fight. I see now that silence can be a knife too, if you hold it the right way. I did not know he was already planning his clean exit. I knew I was really going to leave my husband. I was standing in our small kitchen staring at a pot of boiling rice. The evening was normal in that boring way Daniel loved. The TV was on in the living room, low. The washing machine hummed. The light above the stove made everything look yellow. Daniel stood beside me, chopping vegetables into neat little squares. He asked if I had a long day. I said my day was always long, because I was the only one who actually felt anything. He gave a small laugh, like he thought I was joking. He asked if the callers at the telecom line were rough again, if someone had shouted at me over a bill. I said it was not the callers, it was him. I said he never listened unless something was broken. He fell silent, his hand still moving with the knife. That was how he fought, with quiet. My phone buzzed on the counter. I saw Leo's name flash for half a second. I flipped the screen face down before Daniel could read the preview. He showed me the cutting board and asked if the pieces were small enough. I said they were fine, that it did not matter, that nothing in this house ever changed anyway. He looked at me for a moment, then went back to chopping. The message from Leo waited. I could feel it like a warm coin under my palm. At lunch that day, Leo had sent a photo of the gym where he trains, all mirrors and bright light. He said he had been thinking about me, that I'd always been too much woman for a man like Daniel. When I read that on my break, my whole chest had lit up. Now, at home, I told myself it was no big deal, just old friends talking. That is what I would say if anyone asked. Daniel turned off the stove and poured the rice into a bowl. He asked if we could eat at the table together. I sighed and said I was tired, that I had sat all day at work, that I did not want to sit again. I took my plate and leaned against the counter instead. He sat alone at the table and tried to talk about some new route at his job, a delivery schedule that would change his hours. I barely listened. I scrolled through my phone under the edge of the counter, thumb hovering over Leo's name. He asked if anything was wrong. I said he always asked the same thing and never did anything about it. He asked what it was. I rolled my eyes and said he knew. He did not push. He just nodded and ate slowly, like he was chewing the space between us. After dinner, I went to the bedroom to change out of my work clothes. On my way, I passed the small desk in the corner of the living room. A thin binder sat there, labeled household in his careful handwriting. It looked thicker than before, stuffed with new papers. I opened it without asking, just to show him I could. Inside were bills, receipts, notes about payments. At the back, a few new pages were pressed in, lists with dates and short phrases written in blue pen. When I asked what those were, he crossed the room quickly and closed the binder. He said he was just organizing things so we would not miss due dates. I said he was obsessed with control. I said no one else lived like this, with every detail written down. He said quietly that someone had to keep track. I told him he was making me feel like a child. In the bedroom, I changed into jeans and a nicer top. I looked at myself in the mirror and tried different faces. Soft, sharp, bored, amused. When I was with Leo years ago, he used to say I looked like trouble in the best way. Daniel had never said that. Daniel said sensible things, like that I was kind or reliable. Nothing about me felt kind or reliable now. My phone buzzed again. Leo had written that he was free later and asked if I wanted to meet at the riverside for a walk, like old times. He added that he missed the way I used to dream out loud. I stared at the message. A part of me whispered that this was dangerous. Another part shouted that I had already wasted too many years being safe. I walked back to the kitchen to find Daniel rinsing plates. His sleeves were rolled up, water running over his hands. He asked if I wanted to watch something together later. I said I had paperwork to finish for work, extra calls to log, a possible late shift. He turned off the tap and asked if they were paying me for overtime. I said no, but that not everything was about money, that some things were about purpose. He asked what my purpose was, very softly. I told him my purpose was not to die slowly at our little table while he talked about routes and fuel costs. The words came out sharper than I planned, but I did not pull them back. He looked hurt, but he only said he was sorry I felt that way. That answer made me angrier. I wanted a reaction, proof that he cared. His calm felt like he was already letting me go. He dried his hands with the towel, then reached for his phone on the counter. The screen lit up as he touched it. For a second, I saw a calendar reminder. Harbour Diner, 2:30 p.m. The event was set for Friday, in a different color than his work shifts. I frowned and asked what that was. He locked the screen and said it was nothing, just a meeting. I asked what kind of meeting. He said it was personal. That word stung. Personal. Since when did he have personal meetings I did not know about? I laughed and said it was funny he loved to know where I was at all times, but thought he could keep secrets. He said he did not know where I was most nights lately. I fired back that he knew exactly where I was, at work, carrying us. He did not argue. He just said he hoped I was safe. Later, while he sat on the couch, I went into the bedroom and lay on the bed with my phone. I wrote to Leo that maybe I could meet him soon, that Daniel was being difficult, that I felt like I was drowning at home. Leo replied fast. He said he would wait as long as it took, and that he still thought I was the bravest girl he had ever known. As I read that, I heard the soft scrape of a chair on the living room floor. Then a small mechanical sound started up, steady and low. I recognized it after a second, the shredder. Daniel was feeding paper into it, one sheet at a time. I rolled onto my back and stared at the ceiling. I told myself he was overreacting to a few spicy texts, that he was being dramatic with his binders and his little machine. I told myself I was the one taking risks, not him. My phone buzzed once more in my hand. Leo's new message preview glowed on the screen. He wrote, "You deserve more than him. Tell me when you're ready." I smiled, even as the shredder hummed on the other side of the wall, eating whatever Daniel had decided he no longer needed. Leo's text preview saying I deserved more than Daniel lit my screen, just as the low hum of the shredder started behind the closed living room door. The next morning at the office, the lights felt too white, like they were trying to wash something off me. I sat at my desk in the open-plan floor, headset on, screen full of angry emails from people who thought their phone bill was the end of the world. My mind was not on them. It was on Leo's last message and the sound of the shredder in the dark. My coworker Dina rolled her chair over with her mug of tea. She asked if I was okay because I looked extra done for a Wednesday. I laughed and said I had been stuck on late calls, and then stuck listening to my husband complain. I told her Daniel thought I should stay home more and stop taking overtime. She raised her eyebrows and asked if he said that. I said he did not use those words, but that was what he meant. I said he was jealous of my ambition. Dinah asked if he worried about you being around other men at work. I could have said no, that he mostly just asked if I was safe. Instead, I said he did not like me even talking to my male co-workers, that he always wanted to know who was at every team drink. I watched her face change as she took that in. She said that sounded controlling. I leaned back and let that word hang between us like a small flag. Later, in the break room, a small group gathered around the kettle. Someone asked about weekend plans. I joked that I might escape my hall monitor husband and find some fun on a rooftop somewhere. They laughed. I added that Daniel checked up on me all the time, that he sent messages if I did not answer fast enough, that he still acted like we were teenagers with curfew. I said it with a light voice, but the meaning was heavy. They shook their heads. One guy said some men were scared of a woman with options. My phone buzzed again. Leo had sent a photo from a club terrace, empty in daylight, all metal rails and city view. He wrote that they were doing a special event on Friday and that I would look perfect under those lights. I stared at the image, my thumb pressing the screen. Around noon, a message from Daniel appeared. He asked how my morning was going and if I wanted him to start dinner that night. I sighed and showed Dina the text. I told her he always acted like my father, checking in, needing constant reassurance. I said he would probably show up at the office with a lunchbox if he could. Dina said maybe he was just trying, but she did not sound sure. I knew which part of my story had landed harder. Hall monitor, not trying. After my shift, I stayed at my desk pretending to finish notes. Really, I was waiting for Leo to tell me the time. When he finally wrote, he said he would be at the rooftop bar from 8, that I should come up the back stairs so no one from my boring world would see. I smiled at the phrase, boring world. That was how I saw Daniel now too. Safe, dull, solid, like a wall. I told Daniel by text that my team lead had asked me to stay late to help with a backlog. I wrote that it was unpaid, but I needed to show I was serious about my career. He answered that he was proud of me for working hard and that he would keep dinner light in case I came home hungry. For a moment, that message felt like a hand on my shoulder. I pushed the feeling away. I replied that he did not need to wait up, that I was not a child who needed to be tucked in. On my way out of the office, I passed the small side room where supervisors kept shared laptops and forms. One computer was open on the counter, screen glowing. For a second, I recognized our home cloud drive icon and a small pop-up over it. File uploaded successfully. The file name was just numbers and letters. It looked like something Daniel would do, not me. The sight made my stomach twist. I told myself it was nothing, maybe a backup of photos he had taken last holiday. Still, I walked a little faster to the elevator. At home, I changed clothes quickly. I picked a dress that Leo used to like on me when we were younger, short enough to feel risky, but still something I could call nice if my mother saw a photo. Daniel sat at the small table with the household binder open and a notebook beside it. A spreadsheet glowed on his laptop, columns of initials and dates. As soon as he noticed me, he minimized it and shut the cover. He asked if I was heading back to the office. I said yes, that I needed quiet to catch up on reports. He offered to pick me up when I was done, said he did not like the buses at night. I told him to stop treating me like glass. I said I would get home just fine, and that if something ever did happen to me, it would be because he had kept my life so small that I went looking for trouble. It was a cruel line. I knew it even as I said it. He just looked at me for a long second, then nodded. His phone vibrated on the table. A small notification flashed. Bayview Cafe, 11:05 a.m. Another calendar reminder, another place I did not know he went. I asked if he had a new secret life. He said he was just catching up with people, that not everything in his day was my business anymore. That answer made something hot rise in my chest. I told him there should be no secrets in a marriage. He said there had been secrets for a while now, but not on his side. I pretended not to hear. The rooftop bar was already filling up when I arrived. Purple light washed over the crowd. The music vibrated in my chest. Leo stood near the railing in a black shirt, laughing with two women and a man holding a camera. When he saw me, his face lit up in that bright, careless way I had missed. He opened his arms. I walked into them like it was the most natural thing in the world. He asked if Daniel knew I was there. I said Daniel knew I was at work, at least on paper. I made a joke about my husband thinking spreadsheets could stop me from living. Leo laughed and said Daniel sounded like the man he always feared I would marry. Safe, boring, scared of my shine. I drank that in like the drink in my hand. When my phone buzzed again, I glanced down. Daniel had sent one line asking if I had eaten. I showed it to Leo and told him Daniel was checking if his prisoner had her ration. People around us laughed. It did not matter that the words were kind. The story I told about them was not. A friend of Leo's lifted a phone and said we needed a video of this moment, this freedom night. He asked Leo to pull me close. Leo slid his arm around my waist. I let my head fall back against his shoulder. The friend started filming as we moved to the music. In the corner of my vision, I saw my own phone light up with a notification from a coworker. She had tagged me in a story of the rooftop, the back of Leo's head clear next to mine. I knew Daniel might see it. I told myself if he did, it would be his fault for snooping, not mine for doing anything. I told myself a woman should not dim herself because a man could not handle it. As the song built, the friend shouted for us to raise our glasses. People around cheered. Leo held me tighter. I tossed my hair for the camera, mouth open in a laugh. In that exact moment, another banner slid across my phone. A new message from Daniel asking if I needed a ride home when I was done. I swiped it away without reading all of it. A coworker's tagged rooftop video of Leo's arm around my waist pinged my phone, just as Daniel's quiet offer to pick me up flashed on the screen, and I cleared it with one swipe. The family dinner happened 2 days after the rooftop video made its way through every chat that mattered. My mother said we needed to sit down, like adults, and talk. By talk, she meant I needed an audience. She loved a scene as long as she could pretend she was the wise one in the middle. She suggested a cheerful family restaurant with long tables and bright lights, somewhere public where Daniel could not make a scene. I did not think he would, but I liked the idea of witnesses when I finally said out loud what I had already decided. The restaurant was loud with other people's noise. Balloons hung over a table of kids having a birthday. Servers rushed back and forth with plates and pitchers. Our group took over a corner. My mother Ruth, my sister Clara, 2 of our cousins, Daniel's parents Sophia and Martin, and one of Daniel's quiet cousins, who always watched more than she spoke. Daniel sat at one end of the table. I sat at the other, like 2 ends of a rope everyone else was trying to pull together. I had chosen my dress carefully, the same one from the rooftop, but with a jacket I could call respectful. Clara whistled softly when she saw me and said I looked like I was going to a party, not a family discussion. I told her maybe this was both. Ruth smoothed my hair like I was going on stage. Sophia greeted me politely, but there was a coolness in her eyes. Martin gave me a small nod, nothing more. Daniel pulled out a chair for me without comment. I could feel him looking at my clothes, at the way I had done my makeup stronger than usual. He asked how work had been. I told him work was fine. My real problems were at home. He did not take the bait. He just said he was glad I got there safe. We ordered drinks and food. Small talk stuck to the edges like crumbs. I knew no one really cared about how busy the call center was, or how Daniel's company had changed a delivery route. They were all waiting for the real story. The rooftop, the video, the ex-boyfriend. I decided not to make them wait too long. After the plates arrived, I laughed and said I guessed everyone had seen the video by now. Clara held up her phone and waved it. She said half her friends had already shared it, that I looked like a movie. My mother said I looked free. Sophia said nothing. Daniel cut his food carefully. I told them the truth, but in the way that made me look brave. I said I had reconnected with Leo, my ex, that we had always had something strong between us, that I had been unhappy for a long time. I said Daniel and I had grown apart, that I felt like his roommate, not his wife. I told them I had decided to leave Daniel and marry Leo. I did not say I had cheated. I said I had chosen my heart. There was a small silence. Then half the table started talking at once. My mother reached across and squeezed my hand. She said she was proud of me for not living small, for not repeating her mistake of staying with a man who did not see her. Clara lifted her glass and said we should toast to choosing happiness. My cousins laughed nervously and joined in, their phones hovering, a couple of them already recording. Sophia's face went very still. She asked how long I had been reconnecting with Leo. Her voice was calm, but the air around our end of the table cooled. I said it had been a while, that sometimes people came back into your life when you were finally ready. She asked if Daniel had found out through us or through the internet. The way she said internet made my cheeks burn. Daniel put his fork down. He said softly that he had learned a lot from strangers' videos the last week, yes. He said he had watched me laugh in another man's arms while he sat at home wondering if I was safe. I said he should not have been snooping online if he trusted me. He said trust had to be built on truth. I said I was finally being honest, and he should thank me. Ruth told Daniel not to punish me for wanting more from life. She said he had always been too quiet, too dull for a woman like me. She reminded him that I was still young, that I could not be expected to sit at a table counting bills while my soul died. Sophia bristled and asked if that meant Daniel's steady work and kindness were worth nothing. My mother shot back that kindness did not warm a bed if the person next to you felt dead inside. Clara, always ready for drama, held her phone low but angled slightly up, capturing faces. She whispered that people needed to see this, women standing up for themselves. When I gave her a look, she grinned and said she would only post pieces that made me look good. I believed her, which was my first mistake. Daniel asked me a question then that I did not want to hear. He asked if I had decided before or after the rooftop night. He asked if I had slept with Leo while still coming home to our bed. I rolled my eyes and said the details were not the point, that the point was my feelings. I said he was trying to make me a villain in my own story. He said he just wanted the facts. I accused him of emotional cruelty. I said he never listened, that he made me feel small, that his silence after every fight was a weapon. I used words like gaslighting and toxic, even though I knew very well who was twisting what. I watched faces around the table turn toward him with doubt. A few shook their heads. Someone muttered that men always showed their true colors when they thought they owned you. I let those words hang. Sophia reached for Daniel's hand. She told him he did not have to sit there and be insulted. She said they could leave. Daniel shook his head and said calmly that it was good to hear the story out loud, in front of witnesses, so no one could say later they did not know. That line made me uneasy. I laughed it off and said he was being dramatic. At some point, his phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it and flipped it over. I caught a glimpse of the screen. The caller ID just said, "Private." He excused himself and stepped away toward the bathrooms, phone pressed to his ear, shoulders relaxed but his face serious. He spoke in a low voice I could not catch over the restaurant noise. I told myself it was a friend or his father. It did not occur to me then that he might be talking to someone who could make things official. When the bill came, conversations broke into small clusters. Sophia and Martin spoke quietly to each other. Ruth kept telling Clara to save the good clips. Clara, high on content, whispered that my announcement would blow up once she edited it. I liked the sound of that. I liked the idea of strangers calling me brave. Later that night, back at our apartment, I walked past the wall calendar on the way to the bedroom. A date 3 weeks away was circled in red ink. No note, just the ring. I did not remember seeing it before. In the living room, the household binder was still on the table. Beside it lay Daniel's notebook, closed now. His phone rested next to them, screen dark. I reached for it, then stopped. It buzzed once with a notification. A message thread titled "Follow Up" flashed, then disappeared when the screen locked again. I went to the bedroom to start packing a small bag. If I wanted my new life with Leo, I needed to move fast. In the kitchen, I heard Daniel open a cupboard and place a mug down carefully, like he was measuring the distance between where he had been and where he was going. As Clara's phone hovered above the restaurant table filming my toast about choosing real love, Daniel's screen lit with a muted call from private, and he walked away toward the back of the room without looking at me. Moving out to Clara's apartment felt less like leaving my marriage and more like changing sets in a play. She lived on the 3rd floor of a newer building, with white walls, tiny plants on every surface, and a balcony that looked out over the parking lot and a slice of city. When we carried my suitcase up the stairs, she said it was girl-era time and that I should be excited. I said I was. I tried to believe it. Ruth came by with a bag of groceries and a bottle of cheap sparkling wine. She said this was the start of my real life, that I had been brave at the dinner. She called Daniel that quiet anchor and said anchors were for ships, not women. I laughed, because that was the expected response. Inside, something small stirred when I thought of him sitting alone in our kitchen. We stood out on Clara's balcony with plastic cups in our hands. The air was cool. Below, the parking lot was full of cars, all pointed in different directions. I leaned on the rail and scrolled through my phone. Leo had sent a message saying he was proud of me for finally being honest. He said he knew it was hard to leave a safe thing for a real thing. He added a photo of himself at the gym, shirt damp, muscles tight. Clara saw the screen and whistled. She said I had upgraded. She asked if he treated me the way I deserved. I said he did, that he saw me, that he understood me, unlike Daniel, who only saw bills and schedules. My mother asked if Daniel had tried to stop me from leaving. I said he had not, that he just nodded and asked when I was going. I used that as proof he did not care. Ruth said a real man would have fought. She said his calm was cowardice. I agreed loudly because it fit the story I was building, but a quiet voice in the back of my mind remembered his hand shaking slightly when he folded my sweater and put it in the suitcase. Later that night, when it was just Clara and me, she sat cross-legged on the balcony floor, scrolling through Leo's social media. She said he posted a lot of gym videos, that women were always commenting. She teased me, asked if I was ready to compete. I laughed and said competition kept things interesting. I asked if she thought he liked her. She rolled her eyes and said he flirted with everyone, that it was just his personality. There was a small, sharp note under her words I did not like. The next week, I met Leo by the riverside promenade, away from my new home. He said he was glad I had left Daniel's place. He said living with my sister for a while was cute and temporary. He talked about us getting our own place, something with big windows and no memories of anyone else. I told him that sounded perfect. I did not ask when or how. I did not ask why he always changed the subject when money came up. Back at Clara's, I tried to settle into a new rhythm. I worked. I came home. I messaged Leo. I ignored the parts where he went silent for hours. Sometimes I caught Clara looking at her phone and smiling, then locking the screen quickly. If I asked, she said it was nothing, just retail group chats. Once, late in the evening, I stood on the balcony alone, leaning over the railing. Down below, I saw Daniel's car pull into the lot. My heart jumped, then I saw he did not park in a spot. He paused by the curb, engine running, then pulled away again. His car was pointed toward the street, not the building. I watched the red of his taillights disappear. I told myself he had just taken a wrong turn. Still, it felt like he had driven by to see something, then decided he did not need to. A few days later, there was a small event at the community center hall near our old neighborhood. One of my cousins was hosting a fundraiser. Everyone was invited. I decided to go with Clara and Leo. I wanted people to see us together, to know this was real, not just some secret fling. The hall smelled like coffee and plastic tablecloths. Children ran around with sticker sheets. Long tables held snacks and pamphlets. Leo walked in beside me, hand on my back, heads turned. Clara walked slightly behind us, watching. Sophia and Martin were there, of course. Daniel stood with them near the back wall, hands in his pockets, talking to a few older relatives. When he saw me, he gave a small nod. His eyes flicked to Leo, then to Clara. No scene, no drama. That annoyed me. I wanted something big to prove he still cared. Ruth came over and hugged Leo, calling him handsome and saying he was a fresh start for our family line. She did not even look at Daniel when she said it. Sophia's mouth tightened. Martin shifted his weight, like he wanted to leave. Some of the younger cousins whispered, glancing at their phones. I knew they were looking at the rooftop videos, at the restaurant clips Clara had posted. In those clips, I looked like a woman choosing herself. Daniel looked like background. At one point, I walked over to Daniel, because it would have looked strange if I did not. I asked how he was. He said he was fine, that work was busy. He asked if I was safe and settled. I said I was better than fine, that leaving had given me my life back. He said he hoped I got what I thought I wanted. I told him people were talking, that some family members thought he had mistreated me. I said if he wanted to fix his reputation, he should admit he had made me feel small. He shook his head and said he would not lie to make anyone comfortable. He said the truth would outlast the gossip. I rolled my eyes and said no one cared about the truth, only about the story. He replied that some people still cared about documents more than whispers. The word documents made me uneasy. Halfway through the event, he got a call. His phone vibrated in his hand, the screen lighting up with the word private. He excused himself and stepped into the hallway. I watched him through the open door. He put on headphones and spoke in a low voice, leaning against the wall. He said things like dates, times, and, "I have the notes you asked for." I could not hear the rest. I told myself he was talking to a therapist or a financial planner, not anything that could hurt me. On our way out of the hall, I stopped at the table by the door to grab a flyer. Daniel walked past us carrying a small folder. As he opened his front door later, I noticed an envelope resting in the outbox tray by the shoe rack. It was unsealed, addressed only with his own name in the upper left corner. No stamp, no destination yet. Just waiting. I wondered what he planned to send, and to whom. The next day, at the supermarket, everything felt too bright again. Clara and I pushed a cart together, filling it with snacks and frozen meals. Near the bread aisle, we ran into one of Sophia's friends, an older woman with sharp eyes. She asked how married life was. I said lightly that I was taking a pause from marriage and focusing on myself. Her gaze sharpened. She said she had seen me with Leo at the community center and hoped I knew what I was doing. At the checkout, my phone lit up with a new tag. Clara had posted a short clip from the fundraiser. Me laughing with Leo, his hand on my shoulder, Daniel blurred in the background talking to someone else. The caption said, "Some chains are meant to break." The cashier glanced at the screen as she scanned items. Her lips pressed together. I told myself she was jealous. On the way back to Clara's apartment, Leo texted her, not me, asking if she wanted to help him pick out clothes for an upcoming DJ set. I saw his name flash on her screen. When I asked about it, she said he just wanted a woman's opinion, that I was probably busy resting. The words stuck in my throat. That night, on the balcony, Clara laughed at something on her phone while I scrolled through old photos of Daniel and me on holidays. In those pictures, he was always holding the camera or holding my bag while I posed. I told myself I looked trapped, I did not let myself notice that I had been smiling then without trying so hard. As I watched Clara laugh at a text from Leo on the balcony, Daniel's car slowed briefly at the edge of the parking lot below, brake lights glowing, before he turned away toward the street without looking up. I did not plan to get pregnant. I also did not plan for Leo to drift toward my sister, like smoke toward an open window. But both things happened at almost the same time, and I refused to admit any of it was my fault. The test stick turned pink in Clara's small bathroom. I stared at it, sitting on the closed toilet seat while the fan buzzed overhead. My first thought was not joy or fear. It was calculation. A baby meant security. A baby meant someone would have to choose me, really choose me, not just talk about passion. Clara knocked on the door and asked if I was okay. I opened it and held up the test. Her eyes went wide. She squealed and hugged me. She asked if I was going to tell Leo or Daniel first. The question hit me in the chest. I snapped that, of course, I would tell Leo, because he was the one I loved now. She nodded, but I saw something flicker in her expression, like she already knew how this would go. When I told Leo, he did not react the way I had rehearsed in my head. I met him on the riverside, the same place where we had talked about our future before. I said I was late, that I had taken a test, that it was positive. I tried to make my voice soft and brave at the same time. He stared at the water for a long second. He asked if I was sure it was his. The question felt like a slap. I reminded him I had left Daniel for him. He said we had overlapped a little, that he needed to know the truth. I told him it did not matter whose it was. What mattered was who showed up. I said Daniel would probably pay anyway, because he was too decent to let me struggle, that we could have the passion and still take his help. Leo did not like that. He said he did not want to raise another man's kid, and he did not want legal drama. He said he needed space to think. That was when I realized the baby was not a chain to hold him. It was a door he was already halfway through. Back at Clara's, my mother was over the moon. She said the timing was perfect, that a baby would lock in my new life. She asked again whose name I would put on the birth certificate. I said I had time to decide. I tried to sound casual, like this was some fun modern problem. She told me to choose whichever man would take better care of me and the child. She said feelings faded, but money and stability did not. It was the most practical thing I had heard her say in years, and it made me uncomfortable. Sophia and Martin found out a week later. I had to tell them. They would hear from someone if I did not. We met at a small cafe near the clinic. Sophia congratulated me politely. Martin asked if I was okay. Daniel sat there staring at his coffee. He asked when the baby was due. I told him the month but avoided exact dates. Sophia's eyes narrowed. She knew what calendars could do. Daniel asked, very calmly, if there was any chance the baby was his. The way he said, any chance, made my stomach clench. I said the timing was messy, that we had still been together when Leo came back into my life, that it was all blurry. I tried to turn it into a romantic story about how love did not follow rules. Sophia did not smile. She said biology still did. Daniel said he wanted to be there for the baby if it was his, but that he would not be used as a backup plan. I accused him of being cold and cruel, of trying to erase my child because his ego was hurt. He shook his head and said he wanted clarity for everyone. He said the word like it was something you could put in a file. The first prenatal clinic visit with him was awkward. The waiting room smelled like sanitizer and old magazines. Pregnant women sat in a row, hands on their bellies, partners beside them. Daniel arrived exactly on time, in a clean shirt, holding a small notebook. Leo had said he couldn't make it because of work. I pretended not to be hurt. As Daniel sat beside me, his phone lit up with a calendar reminder. Clinic 1:35 p.m. It was color-coded, different from his work shifts. I rolled my eyes and told him he didn't need to schedule my pregnancy like a delivery route. He said it mattered, because dates mattered now. The nurse called my name before I could answer. Inside, Dr. Mira asked gentle questions. When my last period was, when I had first suspected whether the father had any medical conditions. I hesitated at that word. Father. Daniel sat in the chair by the wall, hands folded, watching me. I told her the father was my husband, then stopped and corrected myself, said, my separated husband, then added that an ex was also involved. My voice sounded ridiculous. Dr. Mira did not react much, but she did write more notes than usual. After the appointment in the corridor, Daniel asked me quietly if I understood why he had questions. I said he was obsessed with control, that he wanted to put my body into a spreadsheet. He said he wanted to know what he was responsible for before everyone else wrote their own version of events. I told him nobody cared about his version. He said the law might. A few days later, I went by our old apartment to pick up some mail. The kitchen looked different. The household binder was gone from the table. In its place were 3 thicker binders: home, auto, and bank, each with colored tabs sticking out. Beside them sat a single USB stick labeled with the current date in his neat handwriting. For a moment, my breath caught. Then I laughed and called him a middle-aged accountant in a text to Clara. She replied with a laughing emoji, but the sight stayed with me. In the living room, his laptop was open on the desk. I only meant to check the weather, but the screen came to life, showing a clean desktop with 2 main folders: Archive A and Archive B. No messy icons, no random files, just those 2 names. I clicked one without thinking. A list of numbered subfolders appeared, months, then dates. Before I could open one, I heard Daniel's key in the lock. I slammed the laptop shut and stepped away. He came in, saw me standing too far from the couch, and looked at the laptop. He asked if I needed anything. I said I had come for mail. I added that I was scared, that Leo was pulling away, that I did not know what to do. I watched his face soften for a second. I stepped closer, put a hand on my belly, and asked if he really wanted his child to grow up without him. He sighed and said again that we needed to know whose child it was. I snapped that it did not matter, that he had always said he wanted a family, and here it was. I told him love was more than DNA. He answered that money and legal responsibility often cared a lot about DNA. I called him heartless. He did not raise his voice. Instead, he picked up his phone and made a note. Later, in the parking garage, I cornered him near his car. The concrete walls made our voices echo. I told him Leo had gone silent, that Clara was acting strange, that my mother kept asking which last name the baby would have. I said I was tired and scared, and that he was the only steady thing I had ever known. I told him if he walked away now, he would be proving he never really loved me. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, waiting for him to promise something, anything, he just leaned back against the car and looked at me with sad eyes. He said very quietly that love and responsibility were not the same thing. He said I had mixed timelines and blurred lines until no one could tell what was true. He said the only way forward now was to handle things properly. That word again, properly. It landed heavier this time. I demanded to know what he meant. He said he meant there would be clear steps, clear information, and clear decisions. He said he would not argue with me in parking garages or be shamed in group chats anymore. He said whatever happened next would be written down in ways that mattered. I called him dramatic, a coward hiding behind forms. I said real men made promises, not checklists. He did not bite. He took out his phone, scrolled, and tapped something. A small alarm label flashed on the screen before he locked it. Paper drop 12:50 p.m. Then he opened the car door. Daniel asked to meet me in the hospital cafeteria to talk like adults. I arrived with my belly heavy and a speech ready about second chances. He sat across from me with a coffee he hadn't touched. I told him we could raise the baby together, that it did not matter whose DNA it was. He said it did. A woman in a badge walked over, said my full name, and set a thick envelope on the table. The court-ordered DNA result said Daniel was not the father and owed nothing. The elevator bell chimed as Daniel thanked her and walked away.